Isn't it strange how a man only realizes the weight of a woman's heart after he has already broken it? How the silence he once ignored becomes the echo that follows him everywhere. How the tears he dismissed return to him in the form of lessons he never asked for. Life has a curious way of handing back what we give. Not always immediately, but always inevitably. Stay with me, because when you finish this message, you'll understand the truth many discover far too late, that hurting a good woman isn't just a mistake, it's a debt life always collects. And if you've ever been underestimated, mistreated, or taken for granted, you'll realize you were the blessing, not the burden. 1. When a man breaks a woman, life breaks his illusions. There is a strange thing that happens when a man hurts a woman who truly loved him. Not immediately, not loudly, but slowly, quietly, beneath the surface of life, where truths have the time to grow into understanding. When a man breaks a woman, he often believes the damage is only hers. He assumes she is the only one who carries the pain, that she is the only one who will feel the consequences, that her heart is the only thing that shatters. But life does not work that way. The breaking of a woman does not end with her tears. It continues in the space where her presence once softened his world. It continues in the silence that follows after she stops trying. It continues in the lessons life prepares for him. Lessons he cannot avoid. Lessons he cannot outrun. Because when he breaks a woman, he does not just break her, he breaks the illusions he had about himself. He begins by believing he is strong for walking away, or for shutting her out, or for choosing pride over vulnerability. But real strength is not found in how easily a man can detach. It is found in how deeply he can stay. When he hurts her, he convinces himself he will move forward without consequences. He believes his life will continue uninterrupted. He believes he can forget her without losing anything important. But he does not realize this simple truth. Every woman he hurts becomes a lesson waiting in the distance. She becomes the echo of his choices. She becomes the reflection he will eventually face. She becomes the point where life begins to shape him into someone he never imagined he would become. Because the moment he breaks her, something inside him begins to fracture too. A fracture he cannot see yet, but one that life will eventually reveal. A good woman's heart is a rare universe. When he hurts her, he does not just lose her affection. He loses the version of himself that existed in her presence. He loses the softness she created around his sharp edges. He loses the calm she brought to his storms. He loses the guidance she offered without asking for anything in return. In her love, he was more. In her love, he was protected. In her love, he was understood. In her love, he was becoming a better man. But he breaks her, and in doing so, he breaks the mirror that once showed him who he could have been. He thinks the damage is far away, but life begins showing him reality piece by piece. It shows in the emptiness he tries to fill with distractions. It shows in the loneliness that follows him even when he's surrounded by people. It shows in the moments he realizes that no one else sees him with the depth she did. It shows in the days he remembers her love and wonders why he ever let it fade. And the truth settles slowly. He didn't just break a woman, he broke the world that was shaping him. And life will not let him walk away from that truth so easily. Because the echo of what he broke is exactly what leads into the next realization. 2. The echo of her silence becomes his loudest teacher. Her silence, the silence he once overlooked, dismissed, ignored, and perhaps even welcomed. That same silence becomes the voice he cannot escape. At first, he feels relief. No more questions, no more attempts to talk, no more emotional truths he didn't want to face, no more effort being asked of him. Her silence feels peaceful at first, as if the storm has finally passed. But this is not peace. It is the beginning of a lesson. Silence is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of awareness. Her silence becomes a mirror that life places before him. A mirror so still, so clear, that he begins to see himself not as he wanted to be, but as he truly was. He remembers the times she tried to express her fears, and he brushed them aside. He remembers the night she needed comfort, and he turned away. He remembers the moments she begged him to understand her heart, and he took her words as inconvenience. And now, in her silence, he finally hears the truth of all those moments. Silence becomes the language that speaks everything he refused to listen to. It speaks of the pain she carried alone. It speaks of the nights she cried quietly so he wouldn't feel guilty. It speaks of the love she held onto, even when she knew it was slipping away. It speaks of the promises he made lightly and the trust he broke carelessly. Her silence becomes the teacher he never asked for, but needed more than he ever realized. Because silence cannot be argued with, it cannot be manipulated, it cannot be ignored, it simply exists, holding truth like water holds reflection. He starts to replay memories he once pushed away, the sound of her laughter he took for granted, the softness of her voice he once found annoying, the warmth of her presence he believed would never leave. In silence, these memories become sharper, as if life wants to remind him of everything he lost piece by piece. And he realizes something profound. A woman's silence is not emptiness. It is a boundary, a healing, a declaration that she will no longer pour into places that drain her. Her silence becomes the teacher of accountability. It becomes the doorway to maturity. It becomes the moment where he understands that ignoring someone else's heart is the fastest way to lose them. Silence is powerful because it doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't explain. It simply withdraws. And in that withdrawal, truth grows. He begins to see the difference between a woman who loved him and a woman who tolerated him. He begins to understand that she didn't need him, she chose him, and choices can change. Her silence teaches him what her words could not, that love is not a guarantee, that effort matters, that neglect has consequences. And the weight of her absence begins shaping the lessons life has prepared for him next. Because when silence teaches, life amplifies. And the next lesson arrives not as a whisper, but as a realization he cannot deny. A realization that everything he once ignored now reveals its true value. And that leads into the next truth. 3. Losing a loyal woman is losing a lifetime of peace. There comes a moment, quiet, unexpected, undeniable, when he finally understands the magnitude of what he lost. Not just a woman, not just a relationship, not just companionship. He lost peace. Loyal women do not simply love, they anchor, they steady, they protect, they nurture, they build, they breathe life into the spaces where a man's uncertainty once lived. Losing such a woman is not like losing anyone else. It is losing a sanctuary he didn't know he was living in. It is losing the one place where he could be vulnerable without fear, flawed without judgment, imperfect without shame. And the world outside does not offer such softness easily. He begins to feel the difference immediately. Every relationship after her feels heavier, as if he is carrying the weight of his own past choices. No one else forgives him as easily. No one tries to understand him as deeply. No one creates the emotional safety she once provided. He starts to realize that life with a loyal woman was not just easier. It was healthier, wiser, more grounded, more meaningful. She wasn't just loving him, she was shaping him. And he didn't see it until her absence forced him to grow without her. He remembers the way she believed in him when he doubted himself. He remembers the way she encouraged him to rise higher. He remembers the way she pushed him gently toward his potential. He remembers the way she held him emotionally in a world that demanded toughness from him constantly. But now he stands alone. And in that loneliness, he understands that loyalty is not a common thing. It is a gift, a rare treasure, a blessing disguised as everyday love. A loyal woman loves in ways a man doesn't recognize. Until he is loved in ways that lack depth, he realizes that she didn't just offer peace. She was peace. She was the calm in his storms. She was the voice that softened his doubts. She was the comfort that steadied him. She was the warmth that welcomed him. She was the heart that protected his. And losing that kind of peace is not something life lets a man forget. Because peace is not replaced, it is remembered. Peace becomes a memory that visits him on quiet nights. Peace becomes a regret that sits in the back of his mind. Peace becomes a truth he carries into every connection that follows. He starts to notice that every woman he meets after her reflects a different version of himself. One less loved, one more guarded, one more alone. And he realizes he didn't lose her because she stopped loving. He lost her because she stopped suffering. And no man ever forgets the day he loses the woman who held his heart with loyalty. That memory stays, that lesson stays, that longing stays. And as he continues through life, one truth echoes louder than all others. Losing her peace was losing the best part of himself. And this truth, this final awakening, becomes the foundation for every lesson life will give him next. Because the end of her presence is not the end of his journey. It is the beginning of the consequences. 4. Karma arrives as the woman he chose after her. There's a certain kind of realization that doesn't appear in the moment of wrongdoing. It arrives later, quietly, like a shadow that follows someone even when they try to walk into the light. A man may believe he can move on easily after hurting a good woman. He may convince himself that he can replace her with someone better, someone simpler, someone who requires less from him. But life has its own way of revealing truths, not through lectures, not through warnings, but through experience. And often the experience comes in the form of the woman he chooses after her. At first, he feels free. He mistakes relief for happiness. He believes that leaving the woman who loved him deeply was a step forward, not backward, because in the beginning, everything feels light. The new woman seems refreshing. She feels like a blank page where he can rewrite himself without facing what he has done. But life does not erase lessons simply because we prefer not to learn them. Slowly, he starts to notice something. The new woman carries qualities that reflect him back to himself. Not the version he pretended to be, but the version he actually was when he hurt the one who loved him honestly. She becomes the mirror he once avoided. Where the previous woman was patient, the new one is impatient. Where the previous woman gave easily, the new one holds grudges. Where the previous woman communicated with softness, the new one communicates with walls. He begins to feel the emptiness he once created. He watches the new woman treat him the same way he used to treat the one he walked away from. Coldness, distance, conditional affection, half-hearted effort, love that disappears the moment he needs reassurance. He starts to notice that what he once called drama in the woman he hurt was actually love trying to stay alive, and what he now calls peace in his new relationship is actually indifference trying to disguise itself. This is karma, not punishment. Reflection. Life returns to him the energy he gave, wrapped gently in a new face, a new voice, a new story. And deep inside, he begins to understand. He didn't just lose a woman. He lost the version of himself she awakened in him. He lost the tenderness he once received for free. He lost the safety he didn't respect. He lost a chance at becoming a better man. A chance he never appreciated until life showed him the consequences. But this realization doesn't strike loudly. It creeps in like evening light through closed curtains, soft, silent, inevitable, because eventually he meets the truth he ran away from. And that truth whispers, you didn't choose something better. You chose the lesson. And this is exactly where the next understanding begins to rise. Because with every lesson comes the moment regret finally enters the room. And that moment is the beginning of the next awakening. 5. Regret begins the moment he meets what he deserves. Regret doesn't come on the day he leaves. It doesn't come when he speaks harshly, when he shuts down, when he dismisses her tears. No, regret is patient. It waits. It waits until his life quiets down, until distractions fade, until loneliness no longer feels like freedom, until the weight, his choices sits with him in a room where no one else can be blamed. And then regret whispers, softly but unmistakably, "Now you understand." It happens the moment he experiences what he once thought he would never feel. The moment someone else treats him with the same carelessness he showed the woman who loved him. It happens the moment someone raises their voice at him, and suddenly he remembers the quiet tears she wiped away without wanting to burden him. It happens the moment someone lies to him, and he remembers the honesty he once doubted. It happens the moment someone walks away from him, and he remembers the day she stayed. Regret grows not from the pain he receives, but from the recognition of the pain he caused. And with every reminder, he starts to see her differently. He remembers her patience, her softness, her effort, her loyalty, her willingness to understand even when she felt misunderstood. He remembers the nights she stayed up waiting for him to come home safely. Even when he took her presence for granted, he remembers the moments she held him together while she was falling apart herself. He remembers the times she asked for nothing, but gave everything. And he realizes something he never admitted before. She wasn't hard to love. He was hard to satisfy. She wasn't asking for too much. He was giving too little. She wasn't emotional. She was expressive. She wasn't weak. She was hurting. She wasn't clingy. She was invested. Regret reveals truths that pride once covered. But regret doesn't stop there. It goes deeper. Because when he finally meets what he deserves, he also realizes that he cannot go back to what he lost, not because she hates him, but because she grew without him. And there is no regret heavier than watching her move on with the strength she discovered in the absence he created. There is no regret sharper than seeing her become everything he never helped her become. But this regret, this ache he now feels, is not the end of his journey. It is the beginning of understanding that her silence was not the punishment. It was the transition, a transition into a new chapter where she no longer waits for him, no longer wonders about him, no longer needs him. And this realization leads to the next truth, a truth that hits him even harder. She healed, but he repeats. This cycle is where the next keynote begins. 6. A woman's absence teaches what her presence couldn't. There is something powerful about absence. It has a way of clarifying what presence once made blurry. Because when a woman is there, loving, supporting, giving, nurturing, her love becomes part of the air he breathes. He assumes it will always be there, the same way people assume the sun will rise every morning. But when she leaves, everything changes. Suddenly, the world feels colder, quieter, less forgiving. The meals taste different. The home feels unfamiliar. The laughs don't echo the same way. Even the silence becomes heavier, as if it's filled with the memory of everything he ignored. Her absence becomes the teacher he never asked for, but desperately needed. Because when she was there, he saw only her flaws, the moments she cried, the times she asked questions, the times she needed reassurance. But when she's gone, he sees her effort, her loyalty, her commitment, her love. He begins to understand the difference between a woman who truly cares and a woman who is simply passing time. He begins to notice the things she did in silence, the little sacrifices, the emotional labor, the way she tried to create peace even when she felt broken. He realizes she wasn't too emotional. She was emotionally invested. She wasn't too sensitive. She was affected by his actions. She wasn't nagging. She was asking him to meet her halfway. And once she's gone, he understands these things not because she says them, but because he now experiences the emptiness they once prevented. Absence has a way of forcing accountability. It makes him sit with himself. It makes him confront the parts of him he once used her love to avoid, because when she was there, her presence filled the spaces he neglected. But in her absence, those spaces echo with everything he refused to acknowledge. And those echoes become lessons. Lessons about gratitude, lessons about partnership, lessons about accountability, lessons about emotional maturity, lessons about the value of a woman who truly chooses you. But the most important lesson is this: her absence was not an act of punishment, it was an act of survival. And while he sits with regret, she rises, she finds herself, she rebuilds herself, she learns to love again. This time with boundaries, with clarity, with self-respect. And the man she once loved is left with a truth he can never escape. She didn't leave because she stopped loving. She left because she started learning. And the more she learns, the more she grows, the more she heals, the more he realizes that losing her wasn't just losing a partner. It was losing the safe place where he was loved at his worst and believed in at his weakest. And that understanding, that quiet ache, that moment where truth sinks deeper than pride ever allowed, becomes the beginning of the next karmic consequence. Because the story does not end when she walks away, it begins. And from here, life continues teaching him everything he refused to learn before. 7. Life returns his actions through familiar pain. There comes a moment in every man's life, a quiet moment, a moment he never planned for, when he meets the very pain he once dismissed in someone else, and it doesn't arrive dramatically, it doesn't arrive with thunder or lightning. It arrives through something simple, something subtle, something familiar, a tone, a silence, a coldness, a small betrayal, a gentle rejection, a moment of neglect. And suddenly he feels what she once felt, not because the universe is cruel, not because life wants to punish, but because life wants to teach, life wants to balance. Life wants to reveal the truth he wasn't ready to see before. He begins to recognize the patterns. Someone he cares about now dismisses his feelings. Someone he gives his heart to now takes him for granted. Someone he tries to love now treats him with the same indifference he once offered another. It feels strangely familiar, not because he lived it, but because he caused. And the realization comes slowly, softly, almost painfully gently. What he feels now is what she felt then. He learns suddenly that emotions have weight, and when thrown carelessly at others, they eventually fall back on the one who tossed them away. Life returns his actions to him, not to break him, but to awaken him. He starts to notice how certain moments feel too specific to be coincidence, how the same kind of person he ignored is now the person ignoring him, how the same kind of effort she begged for is now what he desperately wants, how the same kind of wounds he once dismissed are now carving themselves into his own heart. And deep down he knows this is the circle returning to meet him. He remembers the way she used to wait for his affection, and now he waits for someone else. He remembers how she once felt invisible beside him, and now he feels unseen by someone he values. He remembers how she tried to hold the relationship together, and now he is the one trying to keep something alive that is already slipping away. Familiar pain, a pain with a face he recognizes, a pain with a voice he once silenced. And life whispers to him, now you understand. But this understanding is not meant to destroy him. It is meant to open him, to soften him, to make him conscious, to guide him toward the wisdom he avoided for so long. Because pain is not punishment, it is instruction. It is the reflection of the heart. It is the echo of past choices, and life will keep echoing the same lesson until the soul finally learns to listen. He starts to feel something he never expected: empathy. Not for people in general, but for her, for the woman he once hurt, for the heart he once dismissed, for the tears he once ignored. Her pain has become his teacher. Her silence has become his mirror. Her loss has become his awakening. And this awakening places him at the doorstep of the next realization. A realization that the karma he feels now is not random. It is shaped by something deeper, something he once took for granted, because every familiar pain leads to a familiar truth. And this truth carries him into the next lesson. 8. He understands her worth when he faces her reflection in others. There is a moment, one every man remembers, when he sees her again, not in person, not in memory, but in someone else. Another woman enters his life, different face, different voice, different story, but somehow something feels painfully familiar. Maybe she has the same kindness he once overlooked. Maybe she has the same patience he once misused. Maybe she has the same softness he once took for granted. Maybe she carries the same quiet strength he once only noticed in her absence. He starts to feel déjà vu, as if life is showing him pieces of what he lost through the presence of someone new. This new reflection is not here to replace her. It is here to reveal her value. He notices how rare it is to find someone who listens deeply. He notices how precious it is to feel truly understood. He notices how unusual it is to meet someone who loves without hidden intention. He notices how hard it is to find loyalty in a world filled with selfishness and fear. And part of him aches because he begins to realize that what he thought was ordinary was actually extraordinary. He starts to recognize her sacrifices, her emotional labor, her patience when he was cold, her love when he was distant, her effort when he gave almost nothing, her faithfulness when he was inconsistent. And it hits him slowly but deeply. She wasn't difficult, she was devoted. She wasn't clingy, she was committed. She wasn't emotional, she was expressive. She wasn't too much, she was more than enough. And the reflection he sees in other women only amplifies what he once lost. Because now he understands that not every woman loves from the soul, not every woman forgives with genuine compassion. Not every woman offers comfort without expecting anything in return. Not every woman knows how to build a man from the inside out. He realizes that her kind of love was not found in every heart. It was found in hers. And this truth does something to him. It humbles him. It softens him. It breaks him gently from the inside, in a way his pride cannot protect him from anymore. He sees glimpses of her everywhere, in the way someone else laughs, in the way someone else comforts, in the way someone else cares. But none of it feels the same, because reflections are never the original. They are reminders, not replacements. They are echoes, not returns. And he finally understands that losing her wasn't losing a chapter. It was losing an entire story he was meant to grow through. He sees now that she was never meant to be compared. She was meant to be cherished. And he realizes, painfully and clearly, what he took for granted was the very thing he now longs for. This realization becomes a quiet ache inside him, a truth too heavy to ignore, a sorrow too deep to disguise. But life is not done with him yet, because recognizing her worth is only the halfway point. The deeper lesson begins when he realizes that the disrespect he once gave returns to him in forms he cannot escape, and that leads him directly into the next awakening, one he cannot outrun. 9. Disrespect comes back wearing a different face. Life has a way of returning our actions to us, not as punishment, but as mirrors. And when disrespect returns, it rarely looks the same. It rarely comes from the same person. It rarely carries the same tone. Instead, it shows up wearing a different face, a new relationship, a new situation, a new dynamic. But the feeling, the sting, the emptiness, the confusion, that part is identical. He experiences someone ignore his messages, the same way he once ignored hers. He experiences someone choosing silence, the same way he once shut her out. He experiences someone being emotionally unavailable, exactly the way he once was. He experiences someone leaving him out in the cold, with the same indifference he once showed her. he begins to taste the bitterness of his own behavior. Disrespect comes back as discomfort, as confusion, as insecurity, as disappointment. It comes back in the same flavor. He once served someone else, and he feels a pain he never expected. Not because someone harmed him, but because he recognizes himself in the harm. This is the moment life brings everything full circle, not to shame him, but to awaken him. He realizes that disrespect does not die after it is delivered. It travels, it grows, it circles back, not always immediately, but always inevitably. The universe has a way of whispering, you must feel what you cause, so you can learn what you denied. And in that moment of clarity, he begins to ask himself questions he never had the courage to ask before. What? Did I treat her that way? Why didn't I listen? Why didn't I appreciate her? Why didn't I show up when she needed me? Why did I take her love lightly? Why did I choose pride over kindness? These questions do not break him. They free him. They open the door to accountability. They lead him toward growth. They bring maturity into places where immaturity once lived. He begins to understand something sacred. Disrespecting a woman is not just a mistake. It is a wound that returns to show the man who he really is. And when that wound returns, it is painful, but it is also transformative, because no man can grow until he faces the truth of what he has done. And now he sees the truth. He sees that life never wanted revenge. Life wanted reflection.